Welcome to another top 10. Okay? Now, this top 10 is about stuff that was published under the Marvel Now initiative. This thing was published from 2012 to 2015. This is basically the my top 10 least favorite titles that were published under the Marvel Now initiative. Now, Secret Wars is automatically not even bothered to be mentioned because that just ended. And the fact that the branding ended with the start of Secret Wars. That's mainly the reason why that it's not even being considered at all to be on this list, because the Marvel initiative ended with the start of Secret Wars. Alright? I just want to get that out of the way. Now, first, my kind of dishonorable mentions. This first one basically initially was going to put on the list, but I recently got a second look in the series. I kind of like it. I really do. But the problem is, it's still not that good of a series. And this particular series, first volume, led into quite possibly one of Marvel's least popular events in years. What series am I talking about? Uncanny Avengers. This series basically was basically stuck doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, constant references to the Red Skull. And overall, this was like 30 issues long, even though even the first time ended with issue 25, led into Access, and then afterwards was launch number 1. The writing was kind of solid. It just basically how Rick Remender was telling the story. I have nothing against Rick Remender as a writer, nor do I have anything against the series, especially since the series is still publishing to this very day. I initially hated the series, but I gave the series a second look. I gave a second opinion on the series, and I kind of like it. It's still not that good, but I know a majority of people basically were dropping the series like hotcakes because of what happened with issue 2. Issue 2 revealed basically that the Red Skull sort of dug up Charles Xavier's body and basically absorbed his brain into his own. This probably by far, and of course the book suffered through a sort of a minor delay in a way after issue 2. Pretty much at that point, people are like, we're done. We're no longer going to take the series. Despite this, I think the series did suffer a severe slip in sales, but yet Marvel kept the series going despite the fact no one wanted to do anything to do with the series. Not anymore. And the second volume was just okay, but the reason why I put it on the least, because, well, I gave it a second opinion. Now, the second volume, mind you, was a volume that was an improvement over the previous volume of the series. The problem is, basically, Rick Remender never got a chance to finish telling a story. Not at all. And the series was just left incomplete, I should say. And that's the reason why it made my sort of dishonorable mention. And my other dishonorable mention is Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3. Yes, I do like Amazing Spider-Man. But one of the major problems with this volume is basically how Dan Slott restructured the series, and the fact that people were suffering from fatigue from my number 8 on my list, basically. That Mary Jane was written like a complete buffoon, and the fact that in issue 3, which is considered by far some people's least favorite issue of this volume, because Black Cat turns heel for no apparent reason, and the fact that it led into a very unpopular. I mean, this particular volume had a very rocky. It was okay during Spider-Verse, but in the case of some events where some people were saying that the tie-ins were better than the main story would take place in Amazing Spider-Man, and then it had a very disappointing conclusion. It's like Dan Slott was rushing to this volume, despite the fact he got better with the current volume of the series. But it's just that people were just suffering from fatigue, and that's the reason why I put it on my dishonorable mention list for my top 10 least favorite Marvel Now series. Now, my top 10. Number 10, Morbius the Living Vampire. A series that, from what I've heard from a lot of people, didn't really care for, and didn't bother to give it a second look. I thought the series was okay, but I think Marvel could have done better with this series, and that's the only reason I made number 10. And I had to bring it up. And plus, it also has distinction as being the first title under the Marvel Now initiative to get canceled after like 9 issues published. I am not kidding. The series lasted for 9 issues, and yet the other series lasted longer than 9 issues. That's the reason why I made the list, because I had to bring it up. Number 9, and this is a miniseries, All New Doop. Yeah, the series was not that good. I had no problem with the artwork because I'm more used to Mike Ultra's artwork nowadays. But this series was just awful. Really, really awful. The only reason why it doesn't make number 1 is because there's other series that are actually a lot worse than this. And this was set during Battle of the Atom, which for some people was one of their least favorite X-Men crossovers. But I gotta say, the writing was probably the series' main weakness. Not the artwork. The writing was the main weakness of the book. And that's why it made number 9. Okay, number 8. And as I was talking about, the Superior Spider-Man. Now, the problem was not the artwork, not Spider-Man himself. The reason why it made my least favorite list is because of how the writer writes the supporting cast. For 31 straight issues, this is for a lot of people. I'm sure this is probably like number 2 or number 3, maybe even number 1 least favorite title published under the Marvel Now initiative, because of how basically somewhat bad the title was, and the fact that no one liked how Dan Slott wrote the supporting characters, where every single person was written like a complete buffoon. Heck, he even wrote the Avengers like complete idiots, except Iron Man, where they didn't check his brain. Did they think, like, they thought something wrong with him because of the fact he beat the living crap out of, he beat the crap out of Jester and Boomerang in the opening issues, and then all of a sudden the Avengers show up, just take him to Avengers Tower, do a scan of him, thinking he was a Squirrel or him. Nope. They do nothing else. Heck, I don't think even a brain scan was ever even, I think a brain scan was attempted, but Superior erased the record, so everybody's acting like a complete buffoon. That's the reason why I put this at number 8 and why it's on the list, because the supporting cast was written like complete buffoons. Yes, they all were like idiots. I mean, come on, really? Even May Parker, the woman who raised Peter, is written like a complete buffoon. Like, she thinks this is the woman who raised this guy, and she thinks there's nothing wrong with him. This is poor writing on the part of Dan Slott. Okay? Not on the part of him writing Spider-Man. He wrote Spider-Man perfectly fine. However, he wrote basically the supporting cast bad. Heck, it took other writers basically to say that. And also, when he brought in Spider-Man 2099, he didn't bother to give, like, any info about him, like, oh, here's Spider-Man 2099. Like, I'm sure new readers probably have no idea who this character is, and the fact that Dan Slott didn't bother giving an explanation of who he is. It took Peter David, the guy who created Spider-Man 2099, to actually explain who he is when the series was brought back. That's just my least problem. And the fact that you have Spidey becoming Venom again, that was weird. And some of the storytelling was fine. It's just how he was writing the supporting characters. That was the main problem with the series, in my honest opinion. Alright. Number 7. Iron Fist, the Living Weapon. I kind of like this series, I really do, but I kind of agree with a lot of people on this series. This series had horrible artwork. And I'm like, and here's the thing, the writer was also doing the artwork. The writing was fine. I had no problem with the writing or how he wrote the characters. The series was good on the writing, but the reason why it made my list, because the artwork was atrociously bad. And I don't know how Marvel allowed this writer to also do the artwork as well. I mean, the writing is fine. The writing is solid. I love the writing. But it's the artwork, the main reason why it made the list. That's the only reason why. Alright? That was number 7. Next was X-Men Legacy Volume 2. Now, this series was kind of basically a bit disappointing, especially since it was starring Legion. Another problem with the series was the constant change in the artwork, and how Blindfold was being drawn was so weird. And it was probably a title that probably no one people were interested in time when it first started, and when this line first started. But later on, as it went on, basically it just kept dragging. You had Golden Age Vision show up for no apparent reason. Apparently he was in a coma. Apparently Legion woke him up. I mean, there's some good issues here and there for the series, but... And this is written by Cy Spurrier, the guy who wrote X-Force, the guy who later on did a volume of X-Force. And the fact that the final issue of X-Men Legacy 300, was a terrible issue. They introduced this new character, which we've never heard before, and his mutant power is, and of course Legion dies in the pencil issue of this guy's run, issue 24. But with issue 300, they introduced this new character called Forget Me Not, and his mutant power is that people forget about him, and that another reason why I don't like this character is because he's wearing the Grant Morrison costumes. You know, the jackets with the big X. Yeah, he's actually wearing the Grant Morrison costumes, and apparently he's been X-Men for 6 years. I'm like, what? It's like Cy Spear just created this character off a whim, and that's mainly the reason why that I put this on the list, because of that, and the fact that the series was just confusing at best. But it started off really well. At number 5, Iron Patriot. Iron Patriot is possibly by far the shortest title published by the Marvel Now Initiative, lasting only 5 issues. And I can probably see the reason why. The writing was kind of fine, but the artwork was a bit weird. And the series kind of felt like a Steel ripoff. I mean, Steel from DC Comics, like John Henry Irons, where they gave him they gave Rhodey a niece, which he never had before. They introduced his father for the first time. But the problem with the series was it just disappeared. It's like Marvel wants people to forget this series ever existed. I have to bring it up because of the fact I've read all 5 issues. I think the series was okay, but I didn't think the series was all that good. But mainly the reason why is because it got canceled. Marvel doesn't want to bring it up. I think it got collected in trade. Yeah, the 5 issues were collected in trade. But as far as I know, and then like right after the series ended, Rhodey went back to be War Machine. Simple as that. Yep. Alright. Number 4, Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier. The writing was fine. I love the writing for this series. I have most of the issues. But the problem is the artwork. It's the same exact reason. That's the same reason for Lion Fist Weapon. The artwork was just weird. And the first issue, wow. It's like the artist had no idea what the person was doing. It's like they just took up all the artwork, gobbled it up, and spit it out. And heck, Daisy Johnson's in this series, and you see her for one panel, and yet you hear her talking throughout most of the book. And the book ended very weirdly, and then all of a sudden the character shows up in S.H.I.E.L.D. for no apparent reason. There's no explanation of how she got back to Earth. And I asked the question of, is Bucky Barnes finished with his job as the man on the wall? I don't know. It was never explained. The series was probably canceled into like 11 issues. Alright, number 3 was Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. I have no problem with the character Squirrel Girl. It's just that the series was just not for me. That's just basically what it was. Now, why is this quite higher than it should be? Because I didn't care for the series. That's just mainly the problem. That's just the reason why that it made 3 on the list. I didn't really care for it. Not at all. For a series is planned this year. I don't know yet. Now, these top 2 are my very much despised series. First of which is Iron Man Volume 5 by Karen Gilliam. Now, why is this not number one? Because the guy did have a good start with it. And kind of a good ending too. But the middle part is what really ticked me off. And the fact the guy concluded with a miniseries. Now, the arc that pretty much ticked a lot of people off and what caused people to drop the book like hotcakes was issue 17. The issue where it was revealed that Tony was adopted. And that this new character, Arnold Stark, a guy who appeared for like one cameo prior to this thing, he apparently is Tony's brother. I don't have a problem with the fact he's Tony's brother. But apparently, Arnold Stark is apparently the biological son of Howard and Maria Stark, and Tony is just adopted. This was by far the dumbest conclusion I've ever seen for a storyline. Especially a storyline that lasted for about 8 issues. This was just so disappointing. Now, the Iron Metropolis stuff was actually pretty good, but the Rings and the Mandarin were just so bad. Yes. So, that's the only reason why I didn't make number one, because I had a good start, bad middle, and a terrible conclusion. And the fact that this guy is running with a mini-series that for a lot of people didn't like very much, which was Hulk versus Iron Man, when it was revealed that my friend Edgar, he despised the run not because Tony was adopted, but because it was revealed that Tony was responsible for the creation of the Hulk. That's mainly the reason why. And my number one least favorite title, and I'm sure people it's not surprising, under the Marvel Now initiative was Young Avengers, again by Karen Gillan. This title was so awful. And I keep wanting to know, why did Marvel allow Karen Gillan to do all 15 issues? This series was just so bad. I mean, the guy had basically come off a great run with his run with Journey to Mystery, and yet he does this as a follow-up? Come on! This was awful. I mean, they spend the first 12 issues on the run from this new character called Mother. Yeah, that's the original name for a villain, Mother. And she's some parasite, and they spend the whole series on the run, and it takes the issue like 5 for the team to come together. And the series was confusing, and it had the most awful conclusion for a series where Gillian revealed that all the members except for Kate Bishop was gay or bisexual. This was by far a terrible series. And basically, it just ticked me off, this series. And this is mainly the reason why that it made my number one, because I despise this series. Out of all the series Marvel Now published on Initiative, this is probably my most despised series of how they wrote the Young Avengers characters. Other writers have done a better job. The original creative team, Zeb Wells, the writer of Secret Invasion, Young Avengers, Runaways, and the writer who wrote Dark Reign, Young Avengers. They were better writers than Karen Gillan. The artwork was fine. I had no problem with the artwork. The main problem was the storytelling and the writing by part of Karen Gillan. This series ticked me off a lot more than Iron Man did. Iron Man Volume 5. I had no problem with the previous stuff Iron Man published, but Iron Man Volume 5 is really what ticked people off. And ticked me off too. The only reason why I didn't put like a slash Iron Man, original sin Iron Man versus Hulk, because it's just a continuation of this very series. That's mainly the reason why. And out of all the original series, of the 2 miniseries on the original sin, this one is the Thor and Loki miniseries. Sentinel was actually better than this thing. So that is it for my least favorite series under Marvel Now. Tell me your top 10 least favorite series under Marvel Now. List in the comment below. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video. And that's it. Stay tuned for the next top 10, which is my top 10 favorite series. Actually, it'll be top 20 series under Marvel Now. Till then, see you there. Bye.